Hey, it's Thrand here, and I'm here with my special guest, Rob the Pirate. He's a reenactor, and he also does a lot of fantasy reenactment as well. So he's here with us. His enthusiasm is being a pirate. He even lives on a boat. I mean, literally lives on the boat. So yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He wanted to help out with our test, and I'd like to welcome you all to our Patreon special. This is one that a lot of people want to see. It's the last in the 4 series test videos based on Deadliest Warrior. We did warriors from every time period. We kind of broke them up into non-metal, islander, tribal, and we saw that obsidian and chert and different jasper and different types of stone didn't do very much to the steel armor, which was kind of expected. I mean, we noticed that with the old conquistadors when they came and fought the Aztecs. They had some problems, but their metal armors tend to not work. Today we were back with our Tosei Gosoku, which is our new steels armor from Japan, 16th century armor. We reversed the Do, where we don't have these holes we had in all the other previous test videos, but as y'all knew, we were unable to kill the samurai through the Do, which is expected because this type of armor was designed to protect you. Unless you got in niches, which we showed that, if you get into niches and so on, you could actually pierce under the arms, different locations. Even this is a weak spot. That's why it was wrapped with cloth and no layers of belt. And you have, so it's basically almost cloth armor in the waist. So there's a lot of niches, but today we're going to try with different historical weapons from all periods. We're going to go back to the warriors. I'm not going to go and dress up in every single scene to represent that era and that warrior class like I did before I went all out. But what we're going to do is we're going to test weapons that are less used, I would say, on the battlefield. Armor-piercing weapons. So we're going to focus on armor-piercing weapons, like low profile axe heads, like we've used before, that actually pierced a 16-gauge helmet. We're going to focus on actual Dory or Doru that are much heavier, used in formation, not used alone, and see if they could possibly pierce it. Or if you had like a later century Norman lance-style spear, could you possibly pierce it? Because it would have a lot more mass to it to be used in a more vigorous way to get more force. I don't know how to explain it, but we'll show you. You'll see. And we're also going to try just basically anything that we can, and we'll explain as we go through. Like the Kusarigama is a total reverse. Instead of being like the Dory or Doru that were heavier and longer, like the 9-foot spears that you used in formation because they weren't as good in single combat, it was used in single combat because of the weight and chain. It was less likely to be effective on a battlefield with lots of people because it would get hung up, or just like it would be in an aisle of trees. But anyway, let's get going here, and we'll talk about the drawbacks as we go. Like certain ones can get stuck in the armor or in a person even when you're fighting, so that's why other profile assets were used more often.
Especially once you manage to pierce that metal, they really got to do some kind of dodge. You got a wrench to kind of get them back out
yeah,
there.
So the point is, let's say you pierce the metal and don't kill your opponent, because there's no armor wasn't uniform in thickness normally historically, and it was hardened differently in different grades of metal. Up till modern era, where you actually have steels where you can have a uniform steel, like cold roll steel. So you had no idea what you were going against, and it might not pierce it, and if it did, you could get stuck in there and be unable to, which could lead to spell your doom on the battlefield. We want to be as scientific as possible and fair. So what I've done is I've got the Do right here on our mannequin. Some of you might recognize Lola or Valkyria or Valkyrie. It's a mannequin. It is a female mannequin, but we've got it set up in such a way this time where the gel protrudes more. We've actually got it where the gel cannot move around inside and get damaged just by the actual shell of the mannequin. And on top of that, we have proper clothing under it. We have our hakama, and then we have our kimono on top. But to further add to this, what we've done is a lot of times there would be a silk obi that wrapped around the body, much like the sarashi, underneath the armor. So this mannequin actually has that over the kimono. It's wrapped around and around, kind of acting like gambeson in a way. It helps reinforce areas where the Do might make contact with the body at the bottom, because you see it's domed to keep it away from the chest in case something were to slightly pierce it. It won't injure you. But over our analog ballistics gel that's in here, or jelly belly as I like to call it, which is a hardcore gel, probably about 20% gel, it should give us an accurate account if something does go through, if it actually wounded or injured our samurai. Much better than the one we did our debunking video on, where they had just a straw or a stuffed sand mannequin or something that was very ragdoll-like. It is tied. I'm not using a proper sarashi on the outside. I'm using one that's more of a shell one, and hopefully I don't hit it, but I've got it to help secure it to our post. It can give and move. This is not solid, as most people would think, you know, something solid, you know, you put it up against a tree and try to shoot arrows into it or thrust it. No, this gives. And it could possibly get knocked loose, but I doubt it with it tied. Hopefully, our samurai today holds up well, and we're going to mostly focus on this area right here. This is where the actual ballistics gel is, in this area. And we're going to see what happens in the dole area here. We might do a little testing on some of the other stuff, but this is a mannequin, so these are not proper analogs. So the main focus is to test the metal itself, the steel from Iron Mountain Armory, and see if it can hold up to all the weapons that we will be testing today. We're going to start off with a spear profile that I think has a good chance of going through this armor. And if you look at it, even though this is a Thrand find, it's a Viking spearhead design with a little ball. We assume to keep it from going through too deep in an unarmored opponent, and that's why it's broad towards the back to cause a nice wound. It's not a low profile, but due to the thickness in the spine and the acute taper, which is much more than this one, because this one kind of widens quickly, and it's really good steel. So in the time period of even the Spartan, they could have used hard iron in their iron spearhead, which would be basically be steel, and depending on the quality they got of that, they would have just inlaid it in the edge, just like in the Viking era. They actually hammer in a harder edge when they forged the spearhead to get such a good sharp edge. So this being softer, all this is hardened completely, would make no difference. You'd still have a good hard edge, just like we have in our bog axe, where it was made by Adrian Watson, and he forged in a hardened steel edge to mimic the one that's from the bog, and use iron to make the rest of it actual iron. This spearhead here could be the profile could be a Spartan or hoplite, Greek hoplite spearhead, and we have it on a pole that's 9 foot long, so you can't even probably see it right now. And we also have a counterbalance, or what you consider a butt spike, or a serrator, which means lizard sticker, if you were back in the ancient time of the hoplites. So this is a longer, heavier spear, and to be using it one-handed normally would only take place in something like a Phalanx to use such a long, heavy spear, and it would be to pierce armor. Even the Romans talk about certain units having spears, like back in the old days, that could pierce armor better with them on the field. They just weren't as common as what we're used to seeing with the sputum and the xiphos. Well, not xiphos, but the gladius, excuse me. Get them all mixed. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying, that basically this is a spear that was used in formations, could be used two-handed later century, but if it was being used one-handed, I think it would have the highest chance of going through. These we used here were much lighter on the shaft, shorter, and even though I did put the same serrator on the back, I didn't have the same mass when I was testing it in the previous video, nor did we have the acute tip with such high quality steel. This is pretty good steel, but not quite to the degree of this one. So I think it's going to give us a much better ability, and we'll see what happens. We're going to use the technique that I normally call Thrand's overarm throwing slide, where you can slide it out, or you can pretty much just do a J shape if you have people behind you, and use the weight in your whole body to throw it through. So it's almost like if you're throwing a javelin, but you're putting the spear out with the most velocity possible, utilizing the weight. And I have a book. We have it here with us. Pirate, or that's what I like to call him, is going to grab the book. And I will be doing a book review of this shortly, and it will be on the mainstream channel, not just Patriot. But Hoplites at War. It's by Paul M. Gordonius and Fred Eugene Ray Jr. And he even has a foreword in here someplace in the book. I was looking for it. I'm going to have to talk to him. He's autographed it to me. But he used my research on the overarm technique when I was complaining that Matthews didn't understand it and the punching technique just didn't have the same power, and that overarm had good reach, and that you didn't hit the people behind you. You didn't have to, punch out, per se like a lance, which is really kind of awkward using a spear like this, even if it is balanced better. The difference in his book, he talks about the same kind of balance that Christopher Matthews talks about in his book, but differences would be, he believes it was used in a J-form technique, not necessarily a slide, but he does believe the slide technique was used by other cultures, so let's say the Vikings. But now, it's an excellent book. You might want to look it up and check it out, but we're going to start right now, and in honor of him sending me the book, we shall start off with this technique, and this very much could be a spear from Sparta, from the later Greek hoplites, or even a Viking age spear or Norman lance. I mean, they had heavier poles. Some had heavier tips because they're also continuing to ride by on horses and hit people. So let's get going.
Right on. So Thrand, what is this magical device on your head?
Basically, it's a Hero GoPro.
GoPro Hero 3 Plus.
Yeah, it's yours. And we're going to use this today to get a totally different image of the thrust into this arm.
Great, you guys are going to get to see from Thrand's view what it looks like to try and decimate some armor.
Yeah, and hopefully we will go for it. Yeah.
All right, you ready, Thrand?
Yeah.
All right, let's give it a shot.
Too high, too high. That was way too high. I don't think we hit over our actual...
Actually, we might be in jail. It'd be the top of it. We might be in jail there.
I might try it.
All right, let's give it a...
That's a pretty decent thrust.
Definitely,
We'll try a little bit more.
All right, let's do a fresh one.
Yeah.
You do it. Now you'll hear a 1, 2, 3.
Oh!
Oh yeah.
Another too high. Or is that on gel?
Oh yeah, that's gel, dude. Yeah. We got gel to here.
Oh, okay.
Both of those gels.
Not bad. I wonder how deep. Ever made it into the guys?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's show this.
That is definitely
We might have been able to pierce him with a heavier spear. Because we've got looks like gel was on here. I can feel the cold.
Yeah. No,
that was into gel. Should we check that out then?
Yeah. Open her up.
You got a pretty camera on your head that you can see it with this time too.
Oh, let's add something to this. We will be testing Manchira, or armor like this. This is a Kikogani dole, and these are hexagonal plates. This could have been worn under the dole. They had all forms of this. Even when I stabbed under the armpits, there was pieces made like this to go under the armpits. So just to let everyone know, we're not saying that this armor would have been standalone, and it could have even been Nanbin Do Gosuku, which means it was the Southern Barbarians, which I know is kind of odd on the location, but it means a European armor. And it could have been ballistic proof, or it could have been Tamashi Gosuku, which means that it would have been very thick, up to 3 millimeters, and they did make armor like this. So if you look at that, this helm here is a helm we've tested, and some of you may recognize it. It's a Viking style helmet, or a later Spangen style helmet, and it has a dent in here from small arms. A 40 caliber Smith & Wesson pistol did not go through, jagged it. And we also have a 22 long rifle that hit it here from an actual rifle. I just put a little ding in it. Actually, nothing went through this. We hit this thing from everything with fire axes to Kusarigama to actual spiked axes with a nice spike on the backside, and we just got little abrasions in it. So, would the guy be okay? Most likely he wouldn't be pierced, but who knows what kind of force he would have taken. But this is an extremely heavy helmet, and the hachi could be this thick as well on the armor we're doing. They also have some Viking helmets, like the Giramondo helm, actually has pieces up to 3 millimeters thick, even though it's iron. So those 3 millimeter thick pieces, which are about 12 gauge or thicker, would stop small arms theoretically. So yeah, it's very possible for people to have armor early period that stopped arms whether they meant to or not, or to make it intentionally. Okay, we got.
You do a fresh one?
Wait.
Hey, it's 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do the
check
review
this
here.
out here.
Let's see.
Frog the pirate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
it's
as
definitely-
these are outright kills, we don't know. That's what happens with the cloth. Is it actually
Absorb some of the energy.
spreads? Yeah. What it does is, see how that's a wide cut. So we got pretty deeper than we think. This one's not as
That
deep.
was the
That was
first
over
one.
gel too. This one's much deeper.
That one's much deeper.
Much deeper. Yeah.
Let's do the
Yeah.
reveal.
There. Now, does this mean this is bad armor? No. This man would have been impaled out the back. This he might live from.
Yeah.
He's wounded. We did wound him, which we weren't able to do in the first video. And that's because we used different spears set up differently. Yes, y'all.
See, wasn't it lethal? Oh yeah. I don't know about lethal, but he's definitely hurting. It's in there.
Yeah, it's a good couple inches in, so we were able to pierce it. And this one here is deep enough that's a wound. This one could be in the intestine. Maybe. There's no guarantee. Depends on how heavy set our guy is. If he's a really healthy guy and he had some weight on him, maybe not. But if he's really skinny and lean and not very muscular, then he might have an intestinal wound or stomach wound.
I tell you from the location of this that that's the solar plex. He ain't gonna be breathing.
Yeah, not good. Let's set it back up here.
All right, I'll
Get it properly back up.
Yeah.
You can tell from the previous clip with Pirate and I, as we were evaluating the actual armor damage and the thrust through the armor from the first hit, the GoPro that we thought was making up for using the main camera that you're watching now, that Caddy normally comes up and takes the close-ups and shows the damage done or the after effect of our testing, our results. The results.
Wasn't angled quite right. Unluckily, it wasn't hooked onto a phone that I could watch it through, and nobody knew the password.
Right, so the GoPro sound was hard. Not only that, I don't think it's the highest quality video as our main camera. And Pirate being a special guest, because I had offered him to be a guest on the ThegnThrand YouTube channel for his birthday. And as always, I always follow through. He was a wonderful guest at that. Was kind of, one side and I was on the other side, so Caddy thought with the GoPro, that's all we needed for our close-ups and our evaluations and our test results. But what we're going to do here is, I hate to show it this way, this is the accumulated damage of all the spear thrust, including the bronze spear, which you haven't seen yet. That's why you're seeing so many different holes. My original cut, which I'm sure you can see from the other video that went through here, and no, it's not lined up over the Sarashi, that's used like a cloth armor or bandage wrap underneath it, was right here. This was another thrust here that's later in the video, and this is a thrust that I did originally. So this is my original thrust here that we didn't examine. This is the one we examined that went into the body that was extreme. Just so happens we had another hit here from bronze and bronze and bronze, and this was the two that Pirate had done here, which you will be seeing soon. But what we're going to do now is evaluate this specific cut, which is the deepest. It was a nice wide, deep penetration from our spear. That's something.
I'm sorry, I gotta laugh.
Matt Easton would love that reference. But let's see if we can get this off. We're going to go ahead and take off.
We're gonna have to
untie
her belt first.
And I did get the Sarashi back on the best I could, close as it was.
You're gonna have to undo her shoulders behind her.
I surely will.
Remember, we did it backwards so that we could actually try get an undamaged piece for once.
We were trying to have a flawless video, better than we have in a long time. And
my lesson is never trust new equipment. To get what I know my good old-fashioned equipment will do better.
But let's go ahead and look at this dough real quick. I want to show this. This is the new damage. The wide cut was here, and it's just been pushed in by the impact from the bronze here. But this was the longest, widest cut. It's over 1.5 inches. This is one where I hit double metal. This is one where Pirate hit double metal. And this is one where he actually got a pretty good thrust. But as you can see, the one I did overarm was much deeper, better thrust. And these were two bronze as well. But the bronze shape, I think, made a lot of difference.
This was the third bronze that came in. It just happened to leaf pattern with the front cut.
We're going to compare that to what damage it took before in the other videos from sword hits and other spear thrusts. Not quite as extreme. This, with a heavier spear, shows that the weight of the spear does make a difference, and the use of it and with the extra weight, I was able to get more momentum, more penetration and momentum. So yes, I think a larger, longer spear like that would be used in a phalanx possibly, or in a war, maybe one-handed like I did, or possibly two-handed, but I think the one-handed use actually gets the most force.
You mean you got more force, not momentum?
Well,
momentum
I'm saying...
refers to speed.
Correct. Well, momentum also has to do with the weight and it carrying through, is what I'm saying.
Force equals mass times acceleration. The heavier, and you've got the same speed approximately.
Right, but the extra mass allowed it to penetrate much deeper.
I still want to get something to test your speed one day. Sorry, off topic. Sorry, that was a bit off topic.
All right, let's just say this. With the extra weight to the spear, I'm able to get an extreme acceleration that doesn't stop as easily.
I know, but
anyway,
I still want to test the speed one day.
All right.
You know what I'm
Get
like.
into a physics problem. But I tried to line this up the best I could, but as you can see, all these went through all the way through each layers of cloth.
Only one shot did not, and that was one of the bronze ones, if I remember
The bronze,
correctly.
none of the bronze made it all the way
It
through.
jammed it in instead.
Yeah, it jammed the cloth into the
gel.
hole. We're going to look at that right now. We are going to do step by step, so you'll be seeing this through each hit. I'm mostly going to examine the one hit that was the broadest right here, over the gel, which went through the kimono.
Obi. My apologies.
Sarashi.
Obi is, or Sarashi would be better.
Sarashi, and it went through the obi as well. And what we're going to do here is examine this one first, because this is our main topic. This was my first hit up here. Didn't go as deep. This one went fairly deep. Let's go ahead and reaccount that with your...
At this point, we have the spear switched out.
You heard some of Pirate's comments and mine, but it went in a good... like I said, you could feel the gel on the blade, and me showing it went further, counting all the armor and everything, but actually into the body, it only went a couple of inches.
About 2 inches, maybe 3.
About 2 inches the most.
On the average person, unless they're overweight, you would get most likely into the beginning of the internal organs. If it's around the stomach area, you probably pierce their guts.
Yeah, so about 2 inches. If this was a very heavy set man, that's what
yeah,
Pirate
good
said.
luck, you got lots of fat on them.
Maybe a very fat samurai. You know, he might not be as wounded as badly, but I think that's more than deep enough that we did get one kill with the spear. This could happen from the Viking era, because this is a Viking age spear on a long pole, a heavy pole. This could definitely happen in the Spartan era when they were using iron and it put hard iron.
And potentially, if you had ended up against a pikeman, it might have happened too.
Later century, yeah. This could happen with some of the pole arms used in Japan. This could have happened as well. So yes, the different spears, the yadis, and so on might have gotten 2 inches.
And even, like I said, the pikes.
And the pikes, yeah. So altogether, any century where they had good spears, even the bronze was able to penetrate, and we'll talk about that in a second. And see, it went, just like we said, almost 3 inches, if you're looking at it from where it stopped in the metal. But after going through the Sarashi and how close it was to the body and so on, it didn't go near as deep. This one went through double metal, which is double metal makes it about 2 millimeters instead of 1 millimeter or so. So we got less penetration because we hit the double metal. So this one looks like it went about 1.5 inches, but it looks like apparently about 1 inch or 1.5 inches or so is eaten up by all the cloth and the distance from the body. Because this one actually only went in a little over 1.5 inches, which we had about, what, at 2 inches? And this one here, if we stick it in as far as it goes until it bottoms out, only went in about 2 inches, a little over 2 inches possibly. So even though it looks like it went in 3 inches when you examine the armor, the body penetration was only a couple inches, and this one up here about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. So this one not so bad. I don't think it would be a kill possibly. It would take him out of the battle if he was bleeding profusely through it. This one here, most certainly I think it could, if he was a skinnier individual, hit in the stomach or in this area that would be over the solar plexus, that would be a damaging blow. I mean, I think that would take him out right there. But who knows? He could have kept fighting and just bled and possibly even lived, depending on how bad the internal injury is from the actual point.
I'm a horseman. I've ridden horses a lot. And I know that samurai with this much money is probably going to be on horseback. So I would like to use kind of the reverse engineer of your down thrust, which would be a two-handed, almost an upward-forward motion. And would be used with your...
Kind of with the slide.
Yeah, kind of the same slide that you use.
But instead of one-handed.
Instead of one-handed, I'm gonna direct it from the bottom, and it's gonna be kind of a.
Well, see it. I don't know. Trying to hit within these three here. I believe this is done. Now, I know this sounds crazy, guys, but you can think, wow, Thrand hit a little higher than he was aiming. He was probably aiming about here, about a couple inches down. But putting that much force into it is difficult. So when you throw that much force, things deviate.
Yeah.
If you want to do a really controlled shot or cut, yeah, you can have lots of control. But when you try to put the power behind it, that's when you tend to. And the heat of battle with adrenaline and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the
All right.
berserking.
I made a thing.
Oh, a little high.
A little high.
You hit a double band.
Yeah, I did hit a little bit.
Don't worry about that. That's double band. That's a pretty good purist. For hitting double metal, that means you didn't hit 18 gauge. You hit double whatever that is. At least 2 millimeters of metal. So you're going to get a totally different. Yeah, that's not your bad. And it's also a harder block for motion because he's not really up in the air. He's not in the
Right.
It was more being up. But we're gonna use that one more time.
Oh, that looks good. That looks like it went way deep. And you're retracting it quickly, but I'd say that's in the gel. It's at least to the first one I hit here, but you kind of hit double metal too.
Yeah, we did hit the back band.
But plus, I'm going to be honest, that technique has power, and more than it would just poking, like pushing or punching.
Exactly.
But it doesn't have the exact same power as the
Right.
arm throw, because when I do the throw, I'm picturing I'm going to let that sphere go and throw it full force. It's this kind of thing, you know, but you're aim.
Right.
So, yeah, totally different.
And
So
you also have to remember that
And that
the
shows
technique.
a wound that you can very much see in the Japanese themselves fighting with a yachty.
Right.
That they could get a wound like that with a heavy yachty.
And you also have to remember that technique was probably used against cavalry, so you got horse traveling towards you as well.
If
So that-
you
yeah.
were traveling towards you, you would have definitely.
Yeah, that definitely would not have been a happy ending.
Yeah, not good at all. Yeah, we'll check it out in a moment. Okay, as we see this hit a double layer, that underarm sliding technique that Pirate used has less power, so that's not really his fault. He was trying his best here, but he went through all double layer. So that's 2 millimeters thick, and he got what, about half an inch, 3/4 inch, about 3/4 inch or so, which we already know that it eats up about almost an inch depending where it is over the body. This one didn't even make it into the cloth. So this one, the Samurai was totally protected by, and this is the better thrust he got, which he did hit sort of on the double metal area, but not quite. And it looks like as far as it went in, we got about 2 inches. So it's real close to my first hit where I hit up higher. Like I said, about 2 inches. But how far did we actually get into the, we don't want to overdo it here, but just to where it went. He got like, just basically what I did, about an inch, inch and a half into the body like we did up here. It's almost the exact same hit that I got the first time. Between these two hits, if y'all can see them. And yes, Pirate, when we're examining it, which you don't see that, he did kind of try to stick his fingers in here, and I was trying to tell him no, because the gel will split if you try to put something as big as a finger in there. So I do apologize. We are seeing this in the aftermath of what took place after the accumulated damage. That was the only way to do this, because like I said, the GoPro didn't actually take the imagery very well, and it wasn't even on target, plus the sound was hard. The Pirate here just brought it to my knowledge that we hadn't properly thanked everyone. This is the Iron Mountain Armory, Tosei Gasuku. They sent us 2 armors originally, when we thought we were only going to get 1 through a crowdfunding project. He sent us lots of other items, including katana, actual yachty replicas, pole arms, and our Kikogani doll. And Kiko armor is actually named after the turtle because of good luck, the little pattern on the back. And as you see, it's on lots of the armor. You find it here. And they do everything historically accurate. Even these knees have Kikogani armor, Kiko armor.
I gotta tell you, Thrand.
Very beautiful, very well done, and I think it's performing exactly the way it was meant to, being the lighter version, or I should say should call it lighter, but not designed to stop firearms, but to actually stop the weapons of the day and actually allow you to be quite mobile. I also want to thank Medieval Shot for the Thrand Viking replica. It's missing a little of the detail. I think they had a little more etching on the one from the museum, like engraving of silver. but still it performed very well, and it's excellent steel. But speaking of excellent steel, we have excellent bronze. And although it did very well in the other video, it was not on a pole like this. And this is something that you also brought up. It didn't have it. We didn't have it set up on a full Dory or Doru like would have been used during the early hop-like combat if they would have been still using bronze, or maybe even turn it around and use the Sarauder because the spearhead broke off or was damaged. So what we're going to do is we're going to try this one as well, and I'd like to thank Neil Burge. He's our master bronze smith. If y'all are interested in bronze weapons, be sure and look him up on bronze swords. You can find him online. Neil Burge actually hammers these out, so this isn't just cast bronze like you get from some of the replica shops. It's actually hammered after it's cast, hole hardened to have a really hard edge, almost as hard as steel.
Yeah. Neil, I've seen some of your other pieces over here. It's awesome stuff, man.
You like the bronze swords?
Yeah, no, they're very accurate. And I'm also going to say, you know, I've been doing reenactment cosplay since, like, I don't know, 1994. And this is some of the best armor. It was gorgeous. It took my breath away, and I was very sad that we were going to have to do these tests. I'm thankful for the opportunity, but I've seen a lot of artists do some stuff, and this guy really takes his time a lot.
Yeah, oh, they make excellent armor. Iron Mountain Armory does some excellent stuff. I'd like to thank Michael J. Astorito once again, and especially for letting us do these instruction tests. And actually, he's the one who wanted to see us go funny with it. And I still think the amount of damage, very livable. I mean, the guy could have done it. I mean, he might have been off the field.
It might be a gut wound.
Yeah, he wouldn't have died instantly.
But,
by any means.
You know, you brought up a good point earlier. They probably would have been wearing some kiki underneath that.
Yeah,
so
between the two,
more
could have
layers
been a
of cloth
thicker
as well,
dough as well.
potentially.
Or even just thick cloth. Just
more cloth.
Silk, especially. Silk is very resilient.
They even have lighter leather Kiko armor, and I believe he's going to start producing that as well, made of rawhide.
Beautiful.
Little rawhide hexagonal.
Black and yellow.
Oh, and he fights in our local Amp Guard group, is where I met him.
Right.
And my boys like going out there, Viking kids, we're going to have some more videos with them in it, actually going out and participating because it's something they can participate in. I'm sorry, not everything like the SCA or full steel combat or hemo can an older person who's not in very good shape or very healthy participate, but in Amp Guard they can find a role and do it. Small children, if they're allowed, if they follow the rules, can do it as well.
Right. Amp Guard, that's AMTGARD. Ampguard.com. You can get a rule book. You know, Thrand and I met there. He came over one day. We had a pretty serious battle game going. I will say the rules state that you've got to be 14, but that also boils down to a park level. So Thrand comes to our park. His boys, they're really respectful and they're really astute about playing by the rules, so we tend to make some exceptions for them. But at the end of the road, it can be a hazardous game, you know, as with anything that you're doing physical.
My boys
when
are
you're
quite
swinging
tough,
sticks or anything.
They're berserkers.
But, you know, the game was started off of the original Dungeons and Dragons V1. So there's barbarians and magic and all kinds of stuff. Go check it out. And then you can be as good a shape as I am in at our youthful age of 40-ish. Not there yet, but
Wait.
Well,
so you're closer to my age than his.
I think so.
And he complains that everyone thinks he's such a young kid.
I'm a dragon, yeah.
Well,
but anyway, let's get going.
Watch my head.
That's the J.
Recording 3.
Oh! I think that was good, but we are on gel. I don't think we actually went into it.
Hair over. That's a
We
lot.
cut into it.
Yeah, I think we hit right there on the side. Maybe a kidney shot.
Yeah, let's try again. Too far over.
Oh, wow. Okay, we hit a thrust from earlier.
Yeah, so that's nasty.
Nasty.
Good looking
Wow.
out of the wound.
I wonder if I should try one more time being in this area.
If you can.
Yeah. I made it too hot.
Vertically.
Oh! We hit over tail. We'll have to check these out. They may not.
That was gel.
Yeah, but they may not have gone through the cloth and the gel because a lot of it has to do with sharpness. And I'm sorry, the bronze does lose a little sharpness going through steel. It's not totally ruined. It would still kill people. You can see it here. I don't know if y'all can see it. There's a little sharpness on the bone. But I mean, that's because we've hit metal several times.
Now, this actually brings up a good point that you and I were talking about off camera, is that it takes a lot of effort to deliver a blow, kill someone through armor. I mean, and to the point that it's almost painful. Sometimes it's actually painful.
It actually is painful.
Because a lot of times it will just rock your whole body to try to deliver that much force. And when you're doing that, you sacrifice your accuracy. So
instead of me hitting straight on here where I want to hit, I'm hitting off
here. You know, like that first shot I did with the underslide. It ended up a little high.
But still, I think we might have a good example of what it'll do, but I don't think it actually went through the cloth this time.
I don't know that it did. It almost looks like
it would have pushed the cloth into the gel. So let's see. That could
Let's
still
do a
wound
quick
you.
peel out.
Oh yeah, but that could still very much wound you is what I'm saying.
Oh, well, you're definitely not going to be happy. I mean, the second you try and maneuver, you might be causing yourself more damage.
We definitely have more force this time than we have last time.
You know, I don't know if that's necessarily the force or the shape of the spearhead
The
itself.
shape of the spearhead, but I'm saying we got more force than last time. So I'm saying we can see how.
And also potentially where the wound hit, particularly the central one, you're going to have that leakage where the triangular pattern goes into it.
Right.
That's
if I'm
what's
looking back here, I don't
getting
think
it out.
I'm sorry.
Right.
That's on test. The spear caused more damage this time.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I was kind of surprised.
See if any of these wounds are ripped down.
Didn't even take the clock.
No, we got the same results as the last time.
But, you know, I know a lot about puncture wounds. I've had a few. And, you know, that might have just pushed the cloth into this line.
one did penetrate, but I don't know how far. Oh, he went all the way in, but it's a smaller wound.
Okay, let's see what we ended up with gel.
We ended up with a smaller wound, but it still shows the bronze is capable of piercing the steel quite easily.
That one, I think, really, all that happened was hit that same spot. They just pushed the cloth down into that gel. The bronze did.
These are the bronze holes that we have here. And as you can see, they went in. Let's see how deep they went in. Approximately 2 inches. So this leads us to believe, other than it not piercing the cloth, because we did lose some of the edge on the actual point, because it is bronze going through the hardened steel, slightly hardened steel, or 20% harder because it's called roll steel, and with the finish it's got on it. We didn't pierce the cloth completely. What ended up happening, we pushed the cloth into the body. Some of the cloth was cut by the bronze. It wasn't cut enough to go through every layer of the cloth. Some of the cloth was pushed into the gel itself, which means it would go into the wound. Now, if I resharpened it and try it again and hit just right, then possibly, but it still has a pretty good edge on it. So we can't honestly say that it's totally the bronze losing all the edge that it has, but it's just something about the bronze shape. It's a lot fatter. It's slowing down on the metal, so I think it's losing acceleration. Not that it didn't have the same force that the other spears did. It had the exact same force. It's just due to the shape it has to be to withstand that type of impact and force. It's eating up energy on the shape of the bronze. The shape is totally a lot fatter. If you look at the
Causes more resistance.
right, causes more resistance. So that's what's allowing the samurai to survive so well, is the shape. See this wound here? This is the one I showed you where I hit offline with the bronze. This is the one that actually drove the cloth deep into it, and like I said, almost an inch. So that would be a pretty good wound. This one's not so deep. It's more of a bruise. And it also did some damage to the actual gel, so it might be a small bleed there and a really bad hematoma style thing. But what happened is the bronze was able to cut through our Sarashi some, but it didn't cut through every single layer, so some of it bunched up around the tip, very much like they talk about the Mongols wearing silk or something and it going in the hole with the arrow, so it's easier to pull out and causing less bleeding. That's basically the effects we have here. Where under extreme force you can hit off a hair, and if we look here at what took place, it's not directly over the gels while we didn't get a real piercing, but it went in about an inch or so. A little more impressive than last time we did it. This one was extremely impressive, and you can see this is probably one of the deeper ones we've got. But it went back in the same hole. What happened, it pushed the cloth over slightly, and this kind of spread into the other hole. If you really pay attention to the wound we've got here, it kind of like pushed cloth into that hole. So that's another reason this one looks more jagged and torn. Didn't do exactly what you would expect, but it kind of pushed in there. I'm surprised it didn't rip it open more. But that's how it got room and didn't necessarily cut it, because it was pushing cloth and didn't necessarily cut through all the cloth. But I'd say that's probably our deeper penetration there. It's about a little over 2 inches, as this one was exactly, I'd say, right on 2 inches or so. Still, I'm impressed with the bronze, highly. Neil Burridge does a great job on his bronze spear points. This is a middle-aged bronze spear. This is an important part of the test. Historically, we know that Europeans a lot of times wore arming caps. We even hear some stories of ancient warriors using their hair as an arming cap. And the chanmage was the top knot, or the actual piece of hair that comes over, much like you see on sumo wrestlers modernly, but now it's a flary hairstyle. But what would happen is, wearing it in court and stuff, it would kind of be put in a position like this, and this was actually their hair that came out of their head. But in this situation, it's for battle. This would be pulled over like this, kind of like a mohawk or something pulled across the top of your head. But this provided an enormous amount of padding. Since our Ivar Draugr head here has no hair of his own, we're going to give him his own red chanmage. And we're going to take our hachamaki, which is a headband, not like in the Karate Kid, but more like a kendo practitioner would wear. This is a bit light cloth, lighter than they would use, but I'm going to put this over the actual head and try to get it on here properly. And this is going to come back and secure our chanmage and help protect his head from damage. This is a very important part of our testing, because the helm has a cloth liner like most historical helms do, and helps hold the helm from your head like strapping would, but we know that padding aids tremendously. This head's been tested, I'm not going to lie, with another weapon, the bog axe, and through another helmet. It actually cut through that helmet and into the head. So hopefully this is going to give him lots of protection, and we're going to start off with a very brutal weapon. We have our hachi here, or our dome. We have our minpo. Minpo yorari means face armor. We have our hana, our kare, our shikiro, our fuchigachi mon here, and our fuchigachi. So we have the whole helmet. Do performed extremely well. The do was awesome. Honestly, like I said, all we can tell for sure is he was wounded through the do. That doesn't mean that he was dead or that he would have stopped fighting immediately, but definitely the blood loss would have contributed to him leaving the field. Let's just put it that way. Or if he was I guess a fearful man, he might have left quite quickly. If he was a rich, fearful, daimyo or something, thinking that he might die and want medical attention quickly. But who's to say? The thing is, he didn't die outright. The armor did its job. Last time we weren't even unable to wound him. We had no actual piercings into the gel. This time we got them with the new technique. But a lot of people wanted to see this. This is the bog axe here. And Wolfgang Rolfenson, a good friend of mine, sent this. This is from Novgorod, Russia. This is actually the artifact. We tested this on a ballistics gel head. Of course, we weren't going to test it on armor. I've tested on mail armor like this. We were unable to cut the man under the armor with the mail. I kind of assumed we'll have the same effect on the dole itself because of how broad the head is. It's not quite, although it's more lower profile, and the Romans had axes like this. As a matter of fact, this was found in a bog, and it could be late Roman. Most of us assume, due to the hardened edge hammered into it in the design, that is most likely a Viking Age artifact and maybe Varangian guard. It also looks a lot like the Slavic axes. They're very similar with low profiles, and we believe that has to do with the actual lamellar armors and stuff that were worn by the Varangian guard. And stuff in that region, they had a lot of extra plate, a lot of extra pieces that were added to the armor that made it harder to injure your opponent. So a low profile head makes perfect sense. And we have the Austro axe here, which is a Viking Age axe as well. We didn't test axes of this profile and weight. These actually are heavier because they're low profile and fatter. Because honestly, in the other video where we're testing something that more commonly would be used against unarmored opponents, used for woodworking, used for everything, all these can be used for woodworking as well. They were more commonly used at broader bladed axes. So today we're going to try Adrian Watson's replica of this bog axe. And Adrian Watson's replica was made out of iron with a hard steel edge inserted. So it's got a really razor sharp edge. It's very much like the Austro axe that was found. This is from Medieval Shop, and it's a replica. We don't have the original of this one. I wish I would have a museum. But we will test this one later. I don't know if we'll be testing it today, but it's very similar. If you see the results from one would probably be the results of the other. They're about the exact same length and edge. The only thing that differs, this one I think has a little more weight to it.
And maybe just a slight bit more
And this has
taper
a
on the
hammer
beard.
on the back, yeah.
And of course the hammer.
Right, and the theory on that is when it comes in, when you're fencing with an axe or fighting with a shield and an axe, you normally throw it out. You throw it straight out. You don't do a big arc type thing, although if you were fighting with a shield, you can make the tip hit first of the axe. You can actually hit with the point or the tip first, or sometimes the back beak or point or beard of the axe hits first, depending on how the axe is thrown out. So I think that's what bites and cuts in, or bites and cuts in if you're hitting armor or something like that, if you're trying to actually get a good hit. But anyway, let's go ahead and get going and see what it does to this. Let's show what it did to our 16 gauge helmet in person. I'll show you the image there of what it looked like when I did it, but let's show you the helm real quick. It needs attention. It's quite rusty. Some of the helms that got put out in my shed got rusty that were damaged like this. But you can see where this has actually cut in and gone into the head. It actually put a hole into the head. So we'll see what happens today. That Chan Magi, we set it up the same way. The hair that was put on top of the head and the Hachimaki have done so well in the other videos that it frustrated me, thinking that I was going to get more damage to the head through this thinner gauge helmet. This is 16 gauge. This is approximately 18 gauge, except for where the visor reinforces it. And then of course you've got the shaping and the fluting of the way it's made that reinforces it, and it being slightly hardened because it is cold roll steel and 20% polyurethane steel. So let's get going. Let's see what we can do. All right, what do you think? I think I should come in and hit it about here because it's going to be very difficult not hitting areas that are already dented in or slightly caved in.
I think that might be your best bet, right?
Because we're trying to hit the skull if we can, or injure him. So I'm thinking if I come in where I can make it through this and into the head, because that Chan Magi, believe it or not, adds a lot of protection. We've seen this. Is my GoPro going?
You're good, brother.
Yeah.
Step out of the way.
Well, as I said, if you were fighting, you wouldn't throw like this to hit with the tip on purpose unless you had a shield. Otherwise, a lot of times you'd be fighting with a long-handled axe and you'd be throwing it in such a way that the handle itself could age you if you needed to parry. But with a shield, it's not as important to worry about something being in there. So I'll probably try to tailor it the best I can to get a good point hit. It's a nice razor-sharp axe. Thanks to Adrian Watson. Oh!
Oh, wow.
We cut into it. Now, did we wound him? I don't know. I don't think we wounded him.
I don't think we wounded him. I think that was
We've
just
got a
the
cut
dome.
into the helmet, though. But I think his head survived.
I think that was just the dome.
His nose came off.
Nasal came
I was
off.
wondering what the metal
The
hit the
Hana?
ground was.
Yeah, no,
That's the Hana.
Yeah.
And this is the Nimpo. Or Nimyorani. Face on it. Snap that like that. You might have to undo that and just look before we continue, because that would be...
I think that's the...
Did I hit it again somewhere?
I honestly
I'm
think
impressed.
that you just went... I am too.
We went through the metal, because I think the Viking axe...
Here's the quick.
This type of kabuto or hachi on top.
But did his Chan Magi protect him?
I'm thinking it did.
I think it did.
Do we want to look or do we want to worry?
Well, I don't see no blood coming down the
I
post.
see no flow of.
So hit it again. We'll let
Yeah.
Normally the blood starts coming down the
I
post.
want to hit it from a different angle. I'm going to come in at a little different angle.
I used one of those things for about 6 months and I forgot where I put it.
Where it's not already bent. Let's see what it does. Whoa!
Might want to just leave the nasal off.
Yeah, I don't think.
It's just going to run away every time you hit.
I don't think he is.
He's got cuts to the head. Let's go ahead and examine it now. I'm sorry. But we definitely have cuts completely through the head. That was interesting. Yeah. It's John Moggy. Honestly, I think protecting him. I don't think anything hit his skull.
Yeah.
It's going to take off. Oh,
A little bit here.
a little bit here, but I think that's not a cut. That's an impact. The skull got hit by it caving in, and it's already caved inside. Wow, did it cut the lining on the inside? Check that line. That's what I'm curious about.
No.
Kind of expected. And the Japanese used ornament or axes as well. And not everybody used them. I mean, they're not that common, but they were known on the battlefield. So you can see why. The bite, when you see a cut like this, that tells me his neck could have been injured.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He could have been, I think he would not have gotten up from the impact. He wouldn't have survived the impact unscathed. He probably would have been out of the match, especially the one where it impacted the skull. I'm seeing that as
That's definitely you've been knocked out.
Did you want to bring it over here and show them closer? Well, that one probably not.
Got it right there.
Okay.
You realize you have a camera on your head.
No.
But no, that's,
I don't need to keep walking up and making funny noises with the camera.
Answer this plea here, guys. There was a slight problem with the spine or joint to the coconut, so I think that's what helped cause that. Hey, maybe that damn shit from the helmet shipping.
Yeah, maybe a bloody brow.
Yeah, so he got a bloody brow. He got this, so I definitely consider that an impact where.
Oh yeah.
Amanda Christian has been making me some very nice blades. This is his Falx, the two-handed Falx that I've tested in other videos. It was actually able to go through this helmet here, which is an old World War II helm, and it's a military police helmet. It was worn during, it's an English helm, and it was, best I know, was worn by the military police when they had the air raids. So if you look here, you see it put a hole in it, and was actually able to, due to the strapping, it's old poor strapping, hit the skull of an analog ballistic shell head. Did it kill the head? No. This is extremely thick metal. It's probably about, I'd say about 16 gauge. It's about like the helm we tested with the ball gags. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try hitting here with this shape, because the Romans talk about the Dacians, and this is early period. This is during when Rome was attacking early Romania, or the Dacians and the Thracians. They used these sickle style blades, or like Falx. I've actually got some blades coming in from Amanda Christian, and I'm very excited about them, and I'll be showing those on the main YouTube channel when I do get them in and get them going. And right now what I'm going to do is take that Falx, and we've already tested the axe, and I'm going to see if I can find an area here where I might be able to make it into the skull, because if the Romans are correct, and without reinforcements on the helm, there's a good chance that it can pierce to the skull. So we'll see if we can at least injure him this time. Oh! I don't know where I hit. It looks like I hit in the same area almost that I hit with the... Can't tell where I hit. I might have hit the high. I'm not sure. You might have to retry that. I think what I did is I came in and hooked for the top, which the whole helm rocked back. That's not going to, not really, but that's the design of the helmet line that's happening. Let's try again in this area. Oh! We hit here, taking a nice nick out of the helmet. It didn't damage the blade really any, but it is skipping. Apparently what we're seeing here is it's digging out metal and skipping. It didn't quite pierce. I have to try a different angle so you see what it does. Upon coming down, we pierced the actual helmet. Coming down from the top, the Falx was able to do what it was famed for, and it actually went into the helmet. You can see this. Now there was already an indentation or a niche in there, so we're not sure if it made it into the actual head or not. Let's go ahead and look at that. But I'm still extremely impressed with how the Romans would be in great fear. The Romans would be in great fear if something like this took place. We don't have the I think his Chan Magi protected him, but we won't know until we actually look. Any damage to the skull? No. Just an impact. It went through the Chan Magi, and we have a bruise area here. So that means that the actual hair and the cloth protected the head. So if that wasn't there, I think we would have had a piercing into the actual skull. Very plausible. I don't know if there is padding in there. But that means that the actual Falx performed almost equally to how well the axe cut, if not better. Check it out. As you can see, this is the axe hit here, and it didn't do much more than it did, just a hair more than it did to the 16 gauge helmet that we tested. If you look here, it didn't cut through the cloth on the inside, and that's the cloth liner that keeps it up from the head. So honestly, other with having the Chan Magi and the Hachamaki on, it didn't really impact the head much. There was a little impact here, but this one was already bent in, so that's probably why that took place from the shillelagh we did in the early video when we're doing the non-metal weapons. This you see here is from the Falx, which I kind of expected a blow like that, because early Roman helmets describe wounds like this and sometimes into the head of the Roman soldier before they reinforced them. They put a reinforcement on the front to help stop that and to keep from getting hit in the face, because I think their main problem was not the penetration in the top, because some of theirs might have been thicker than this, but I think they needed something like this as well to protect the face from coming in on the face. And thank you once again, Amanda Christian. Your Falx is performed exactly like it was described historically. I think that without the Chan Magi, and I might be a little tough on the Chan Magi there because we rolled up some cloth to make up for the hair, and hair would separate easier. In his defense, I think that might have wounded the samurai, at least had blood running down his head. But anyway, I've got a Kusarigama, because a lot of people want to see what the Japanese would have that was armor piercing that might actually be able to go through the helm. And I'm sorry, but I've gotten this through helmets that, like the 16 gauge helm, I was able to pierce into it and into the head after I hit it in. Now, I don't want to hit an area where it's already dented in. I want to try to hit a fresh area, but where the Chan Magi's not and the Hachamaki on the very top, because with the padding in the helmet that holds it up off the head, like it was done traditionally, and that, I think it's just way too much. There's no way this point will go through, and like I said, the hair doesn't separate. The hair is solid because it is rolled up as a cloth. And I was even told that some people did roll cloth around the Chan Magi before they put the thing on it, so I wouldn't doubt it. I could see a bald man rolling something up and putting it in his helm or his kabuto like that to get the same effect. It would work. I mean, we've proven it here today. What we're going to do though is I'm going to come in where I might be able to make it through the metal if we'll pierce it, and into the head. I'm going to try my damnedest. This was a dueling weapon. As for the Falx is not a very defensive weapon because if you notice, it doesn't have pillions, crossguard, any kind of hand protection, and unless you're wearing a lot of armor, which that time period I doubt the Thracians or the Dacians were, for using those type of weapons, it was more of a very offensive weapon. Well, this is the same kind of thing. That could be used in large groups and together to work on, like, let's say, a shield wall and get around the shield. But this had a chain and couldn't be used on the battlefield. Plus, the actual Kama part, which was much more like a military pick. A lot of them were made out of steel, like all steel construction, the handle and all. These weren't a farming implement. They were designed to go through armor. It was fad for a dueling weapon or a court weapon lying on the side. It wasn't just a ninja thing or a shinobi thing. And samurai used Kusarigama. So what we're going to do is they used them in duels, is what I'm going to explain. They used them in duels, not on the battlefield, because the chain, unless it was very sharp and used much like a flail, would get in the way. So today we got one with a very long chain. We're not worried about the weight. Other than tangling the man up in armor, I doubt it would do much damage. I'm going to go ahead and come in, and I'm going to try to hit him right here and see if I can pierce the actual head. I give it everything I got. everything we did, out of everything we've done, this is the only thing that might have killed it. So I think it's a win for the Bujinkan and any of the shinobi out there who would still believe these were common weapons and use them. And I also believe that it was a common samurai thing to have a kama that was used like a military pick to go through armor, and also possibly a Kusarigama with a chain on it. Let's see what happens. I am very, very interested in this one. This may be the only thing that has defeated our armor today. I've always loved the Kusarigama, and I think there's a reason why. I think I hit just the sweet spot, but we'll see. Did we get into the head too? I don't know. I would say we might have.
I want to take it out before
I'm
you
going to try
take
pulling
it
it
out.
out. This is the flaw in this weapon. Once you're in something, you can't always get it out. But I was able to. Do I see any blood on here? I see gel on it. This might have been our kill. Maybe. Out of everything we did, it's not a kill, it's just a good one. Ooh, it's through the cloth.
Thanks. There goes my...
And it's into the skull. But let's see how deep. That was the only thing that actually defeated.
Maybe about 3-4 millimeters.
Yeah. So would it be an outright kill? No, but what this says to me is that it probably would have knocked him out, could have knocked him unconscious, but the actual cerebral fluid coming out after that type of piercing would have made him lightheaded and he would have lost on the field. Would he have been dead like he would have been without it? Without it, this would have went clean through the skull and out the other side. We've done it before in the video. I got it stuck in there. I couldn't even remove it from the head. So it may have saved his life, but I think he would have been off the battlefield, and if he didn't get a very bad infection inside his cranium, he most likely would have lived if they got him off the field and no one had finished him. Anyway, devastating, very devastating. Here, this doesn't look as bad, but this was actually the worst piercing. This came from the Kusarigama. And
Still owe me a new bandana.
yeah, and it went through everything. It went through the hachimaki and the lining of the helmet, but this is also right against the head. The rest of these are up above the head, held off the head, so might have gotten some impact, but no cuts. This one literally pierced into the skull, I'd say a good 1/4 inch or so, which you see in the
The other
video.
hard part is we don't know what damage it could have done to the neck.
True. These impacts were extreme. These here could have taken him out. Even the Falx possibly could have if you hit him straight on like that, because they even talk about stone cuts or overhead cuts from the from like Jodan, Dai Jodan, coming down and hitting somebody directly on top of the helmet and pretty much taking them out or dazing them enough you could finish them. Even on a helm like this, on a kabuto.
And I wasn't kidding, you still owe me a new bandana.
I will get you one.
Better.
But these are still horrible blows, much more impressive than the first video using armor-piercing style weapons that were designed to punch holes in armor. Especially the Kusarigama, which I honestly believe a warhammer or a military pick from Europe would do just the same, if not worse. I hope you enjoyed our Patreon special today with our special guest, Frog the Pirate. I think he did exceptionally well helping us do the testing and set up, and he's been doing a lot more than what you think here. He's actually brought the GoPro cam, which gave us that new view, because I don't have a GoPro cam at the current time. I had one in the past, but we no longer have one. And we got to see how the axe performed, the spear performed, and the other weapons. And honestly, what do you think about how well the man survived due to how light the armor is and the mobility you had?
First of all, I'm shocked by how well the helm stood up. I really kind of thought he would sustain a lot more damage from that. And
all we effectively got was a cut into the metal.
Effectively, right.
And we did hit the skull on this side, but it was mostly the metal impact on the skull. The actual cut was stopped
Right.
short of the head, or enough that it wasn't able to cut through the cloth.
Yeah, I think it's a real good example of period materials, period craftsmanship, and yeah, I definitely would have protected you, because
These are the gauges we find in museums. Honestly, the 18 gauge style, or even slightly less lacquered and hardened, the steels, the good steels. And people go, oh, it wasn't real armor. That was something they made later century as an ornamentation of what armor was. And I think it proves that no, this is what they were wearing when they mass-produced 16th century armor, and they wanted lighter weight armor that everybody could have on and be able to scale castle walls and do the duties they needed to do. This is what they were doing. And I mean, they did have thicker gauges, like we talked about the Tamashi Gosoku, the ones tested against the Portuguese matchlocks and stuff.
Right.
And those are very, very thick. If you wore that, you'd lose your mobility.
Oh, good.
Of course, it'd be like the helm we tested where you couldn't shoot modern handguns through it, but they weren't all that way. And it proves that there was a reason to have them lighter, and that you could have still survived on the battlefield, even if you were slightly wounded through it. I think it's worth it. I mean, I think the mobility and everything's worth it.
I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to put the armor on myself.
Well, what you've seen me do with it.
But I have seen the other videos.
Me doing cartwheels
and everything.
And rolling
and
climbing, and I was able to actually do pull-ups in it and do the monkey bar, so to speak.
I know if we can hammer it out, maybe I'll kidnap it in March and wear the GoPro and we'll do some more extreme mobility on the battlefield.
That would be awesome, yeah. He moves extremely well. He does all kinds of weird rolls and turns, and yeah, I would love to see him.
The two of you are competition for each other for that.
Oh, very,
Don't
very
let
true.
me put it on anymore, please.
But anyway, I would like to thank Iron Mountain Armory once again and for letting us to destroy the armor. Although we didn't really want to destroy it, I have no qualms about destroying the armor or doing damage to it, but we are going to come back and try to take this exact same armor and use the techniques that I have an idea might work and repair it, revitalize it, because when you invest in something that's expensive like this, it'd be nice to know that you could repair it if you damage it. I guarantee you probably won't damage it like we did in this one.
No, and
At least not wearing it. Anyways.
I think a couple of round poles and a sledge blow or two, and I think this armor would actually repair it fairly well.
And repainting, but also for the actual holes, I'm going to try brazing it. Maybe use some bronze brazing, because I know that if I beat it up on the inside and smooth it off on the outside, it'll be just about as strong as the metal itself. If you get it close enough together.
And you got my rebar.
Yeah. But no, anyway, I hope you all enjoyed it, and thank you once again for being here with us.
Thanks, Thrand, for having me out. Oh, man.
Because I mean, he's like one of the major figures there. So, and I thought it was fun to have somebody to work with for a change instead of just Caddy and I. And yeah.
And everyone complaining because I won't get on camera.
And then again, thanks for all the setup and stuff, because he did a lot setting up, getting things ready, prepared, while I was doing other things, so we could get this video to you as quick as possible.
And if you guys would like to see more of Frog the Pirate, just let Thrand know, and maybe I'll make another appearance.
Most certainly. And as always, farewell.
Avast, hearties.